I'm seeing a path to $75,000 for Bitcoin, and I want to break this down for you because many of you guys know on this YouTube channel that even though the short-term trend has been looking very, very bad, I'm still actually quite optimistic about Bitcoin's strength in the long term, and I do think we're going to be able to pass that all-time high at about 69k and then actually potentially, double it and rise significantly higher. So I want to talk about that because I haven't spoken about it for a long time, but that doesn't mean I've stopped believing it. And here's the key thing, right, is that Bitcoin has quite a bit of resistance up ahead. I've outlined for you why I think this area could be a challenge for Bitcoin, but just very, very briefly, I will recap this because it's very important for why I think we may end up rising up to 75k, so just stick with me here. And by the way, make sure you do hit up the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already, because of course this content is very, very time sensitive. So here's the thing, I was talking about this falling wedge in the market right here. It's a very typical pattern that Bitcoin loves to trade in, and a lot of the time Bitcoin falls out of these patterns. It either we can form them in the opposite direction, something a little bit like this, or we can form them in the downward direction, but Bitcoin loves to break them with very, very big breakouts, and it looks like we could be seeing a similar setup right here, and generally these things lead to explosions to the upside. That's not what I want to focus on right now. I'll get to that later on, but the key thing that I just want to focus your attention on at the moment, my webcam is lagging so I'll turn that off, that I want to focus your attention on at the moment is actually how there is a fair bit of resistance that's going to be at about the high $45,000 range if Bitcoin kind of reaches this level relatively soon. And it also lines up with horizontal resistance, which you guys have heard me talking a lot about on this YouTube channel recently. It's one of the key things that I've been talking about in my analysis recently, is that this area could turn out to be very problematic for Bitcoin in the short term because recently it was very strong support, right? And again, I just want to outline this to you. We're looking at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 individual hits of this support level. 8 right here on the 4-hour time frame, and quite recent. So it's definitely, I think, going to be a challenging area for Bitcoin. And then not only is that an area of resistance, but there's also the 4-hour Ichimoku cloud, which we haven't even started to trade in yet, right? So short term, there's still a lot of signs which are definitely firmly bearish, in my opinion, for this market at the moment. But the thing is that if we manage to break above these levels, take a look at this right here on the 1-hour time frame. If we manage to break above these resistance levels, we can expect some pretty nice things to happen. Look at this. I was talking about the 1-hour Ichimoku cloud, and as soon as Bitcoin was able to surpass it, we traded down a little bit, but we started to get a breakout right now as I filmed this video. So this is the thing, is that when we manage to break resistance levels, we typically see really, really nice follow through. And I think that that's something we could be looking at as Bitcoin approaches that mid to high $40,000 range to potentially capture a little bit of resistance. On the 4-hour time frame, for example, this resistance on the Ichimoku cloud ends at about 46.3. The range that I've been outlining is between 45.8 and 40. Actually, I've got a box right here. It's between 45.8 and 46.4. This is the resistance range that I'm seeing, and as soon as Bitcoin gets above it, if it does, I think we could be good. Again, the problem that we're facing here is that as soon as we break these areas of resistance, there's more up ahead, right? If we look at this on the daily time frame, we've got a big resistance cloud right now for Bitcoin, stretching all the way from 49,000 all the way up to 54. This is a big range. This is more than 10% of price action that's going to be offered as resistance for Bitcoin, potentially if it ends up reaching these levels at some point towards the beginning of February, and that is definitely problematic, right? I must highlight all of this for you guys until I get onto the very bullish stuff, because I still think that it's definitely very possible, but I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I wasn't staying objective and analyzing every reason that I could be wrong as well, right? That's one of the reasons that I've been able to be so consistently correct in this market, is that I'm always doubting myself and I'm making sure that I don't make strong conclusions until I feel safe to do so. So that's the thing, is that as we approach these resistance levels, like I said, on the 4-hour time frame, we're clear, right? If we look at the 4-hour EMA ribbon, we're already nearly clear of it. So as soon as we break resistance levels, we can expect nice breakouts. And that's one of the key reasons that, for example, if I just show you what happened right here, and this is the basis of the video, so pay close attention to this one, is that Bitcoin had a nice area of resistance right here when it originally fell down into this range, and it was consistently finding rejections along this line. And to be fair, This wasn't, this didn't last a long time. The breakout took about 13 days, so it's not a very long-term area of resistance. Let me just see if my camera works now. It's not a very long-term area of resistance on the chart, but it was definitely there. And then look, as soon as we get that breakout, we get some pretty nice follow-through. Now, it's not extremely high. It's not a very strong follow-through. If we measure it from the breakout point to the high, it's a further 8% rise. So it's not absolutely enormous, but the thing to keep in mind right here, ladies and gents, is that Bitcoin managed to form this breakout inside of a downtrend. And so generally, if we're doing anything that's a bullish breakout inside of an existing downtrend, and the webcam's got to go back again, I'm very sorry for that. If we're doing anything that's kind of bullish inside of an existing downtrend, well, that's still pretty nice, right? So we take what we get. We can't be choosers when we're beggars in this kind of situation. For those of you who've heard the term, beggars can't be choosers, right? When we're in a downtrend, our automatic default is always moving down. So any ray of sunshine at all, it's like being in England in summer. The temperature is still going to be completely terrible. It'll be freezing temperatures, like 2 degrees Celsius or whatever, but we'll take the glimmer of sunshine because we know that it's all we're going to get. That's the thing, though, is that as we break these resistance levels, we tend to get a really, really nice follow through. And just take a look at this chart right here. It's the same chart I already showed you. Bitcoin has already done this quite nicely, right? If we look at this stretching from, I think this was April all the way towards July, Bitcoin formed a very similar pattern to this, where it found support in this green box down here, which is about $31,000. And now we're looking at a very similar box at a higher level at about $40,000. And so it's really, really nice price action, seeing how the market is trading in a very narrow downtrend, and then bam, we get the breakout. And this is, like I said, as soon as we break these resistance lines, we have huge follow through. By the way, I covered exactly this in the last video, so if you missed it, again, make sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel, you're hitting up the like button, you're dropping me a comment telling me how beautiful you think the view behind me that you can't see anymore is, because all of that engagement will tell YouTube that you want to see more of these videos. And of course, it helps the channel out as well, so I do really appreciate it. Just do me a favor, if you haven't already, just go ahead and click those buttons. But moving on, we were in a very similar pattern right now, and that is why I want to highlight this too. Even the Ichimoku cloud, it's interesting, right? Like this bull market, the Ichimoku cloud hasn't been reliable at all, since the beginning of 2021. We've plunged right through it, and then we managed to rise up into it. This is on the 2-day chart, by the way, not the 1-day. We know that the 1-day chart is pretty bearish right now. 2-day chart actually closing up, and then potentially getting ready to hit this area. And the key thing that I want to focus your attention on is just the fact that Bitcoin is again in one of these kind of falling wedges, falling down to a critical area of support, and then potentially getting ready to travel upwards again. And I just want to point out to you guys this double bottom pattern that I've highlighted on this chart, where the market could potentially rise all the way up to this resistance level, which is going to be about, on this chart, at about $44,000, although it's very possible to wick above the lines and drop below the lines. It doesn't really matter as long as the overall trading happens within the wedge. And that's why I wouldn't remove this support line right here, even though there is a massive wick to the downside. If you look at where the 2-day candle closes, it closes significantly higher. So I really am not very bothered about that. And so broadly speaking, if we do manage to get that peak at about the $46,000 range that I've been outlining, seeing a double bottom here would be absolutely phenomenal before we see another further breakout to the upside. And that is exactly what happened right here. If you take a look at the price action right here and we trace this down, we found support on the bottom of the line, we found resistance towards the top of the line, we came down for a double bottom, and then bam, we got our explosive breakout. Obviously, we don't have to do the same thing, but history does tend to rhyme, and it would be a really nice chart pattern. That's not really what I find exciting, though. I think the key thing that's really cool, in my opinion, is this chart right here, where Bitcoin is potentially looking to be targeting this $75,000 level. And to me, this is very exciting, because we're looking at a situation here where Bitcoin bottomed out on this ascending triangle. And I'll just draw this ascending triangle so you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is best displayed on the monthly time frame, just to give ourselves an idea of how large this pattern is as a start, right? It doesn't really it doesn't really make a lot of sense to constantly analyze this on the monthly time frame, but just for now, I think it does kind of prove the point just so you can get a sense of scale, right? And I'd be looking at a pattern that looks something a little bit like this, and then now that we've drawn it on a larger time frame, we can zoom in a little bit, and this is going to start to make a little bit more sense now. You know, we can really understand what's going on with this chart, and of course this has already been drawn on the 1-day chart, so we can also switch over to that. But it's just to show you that this is a very long-term chart. It's really important to get this sense of scale here, because the longer term the pattern is, generally, in my opinion, and you know, pretty much anyone else that knows about TA, you know, generally the longer term the pattern, the more significant it is, the more weight we need to give it. And of course, this is all about, you know, where on this channel I'm trying to bridge together all different styles of analysis that I think work well. I've been analyzing these markets for a very, very long time now, relative to my life and relative to the life of crypto. So you know, I've kind of learned what I think are good and bad ways to analyze the markets, and of course I'm always choosing the best and discarding the rest. But right here, this is potentially an ascending channel. I'm sorry, an ascending triangle. It's a bit of a rising wedge, but whatever the case is, what we're really seeing here is that the volume really peaks up as we enter the ascending triangle. I'm going to call it an ascending triangle because I think that you know, that's pretty much what it is. We can draw this resistance line a little bit more like this with a box, and then it's a pretty clear, you know, ascending triangle, right? But and I'm just saying that because the implication of an ascending triangle is much more overtly bullish than the implication of a rising wedge. But bottom line, what I think has happened here is that the market was gaining a lot of volume and a lot of excitement in this rally up, and then we started entering a very, very long period of consolidation, which, by the way, technically, if what I'm saying is true, we've been in for about 310 days, which is fucking crazy. And we, you know, we're basically just coiling up for the next explosive move to the upside. Do you know what I find interesting, just while we're here, I'm just going to go off track for a second, is that Bitcoin has never ever done this, right? Like in Bitcoin's uptrend, I suppose you could you know, you could say that this is the same thing, but Bitcoin has never really, and could you though? Hang on, let me just measure this from the bottom. I'm sorry, from the top to the bottom, Bitcoin crashed by minus 74%. And in this market, from the top to the bottom, Bitcoin crashed by about minus 56. So, I mean, it's a similar-ish percent drop, broadly speaking, but Bitcoin generally doesn't, you know, explode to the upside and then, you know, consolidate for a really ridiculously long amount of time and then break out to the upside. You know, usually we'll explode to the upside and then we'll crash to absolute shit and we'll take a long time to recover, exactly like what happened right here. It's just an observation, just something I wanted to point out. It makes total sense that the market is maturing and changing the way it behaves now, because the market is so different with all of the fundamental factors that are at play over here. You know, previously, everything before pretty much, you know, what happens, oh, that's the wrong line. Everything before what happens pretty much right before this red line, the market really was very, very different. The market only really matured a lot more after this, and you know, I mean, you could say it just got even more extreme right when the pandemic began in the West, and yeah, it's interesting to see what happened after that. So I just want to, you know, ground ourselves with the facts and make sure that we're still aware of all of the factors at play right here. And let's just move back to this ascending triangle and really dive into that 75k target and why I think it makes sense. So you can see that this is a nice area of long-term support. It lines up with $40,000 support, which you guys already know I'm very, very bullish about, have been for a long time, right? Even though I've been giving short-term bearish analysis, I always made it clear that my long-term stance is overwhelmingly bullish. You know, short-term charts can continue to look bearish for a long time, but the long-term chart I think is absolutely key here. And to see that we got a nice bounce up, to me indicates that this level could be useful again. And the thing is if we move this back onto the daily time frame and I show for you what's shown on this chart already, you know, Bitcoin took roughly from this point roughly about 114 days. I'm showing 111. This chart shows 114. Took roughly 114 days, let's say, to reach its peak, right? From its low at support to its high at resistance, it took about 114 days to reach that point. And all I'm doing here is I'm drawing the same 114-day time frame to see where does that put Bitcoin now. So take a look at this. This is the very, very same wedge. I'm just going to move this out 114 days, bam, something a little bit like this, and then I'm just going to trace it upwards, and I'm going to see what price target that gives me. And wow, I've painted it so differently. That only gives me a price target of $70,000. So my bad. Definitely did not draw this chart correctly. So let's just stick to this one that I already had drawn. This one showing us a potential 83% push to the upside, previously 132%, but at the same time, if it takes Bitcoin the same time to recover back up towards the top of this rising wedge pattern, that would be giving us a speculative target of $75,000. I think really all we can say is let's just say, you know, for simplicity, we're looking at kind of 75,000 to say 65,000. I mean, that's a pretty nice big range. It's a very safe one, just showing that, you know, generally I think this is where Bitcoin could be heading. If we look at this on larger time frames, it still makes a lot of sense. And I just want to make this very, very clear, because I'm not here to get the lotion out and start jacking myself off to this price prediction right now. There's still a big chance, like I showed you in the previous screenshot right here, that Bitcoin actually comes back down for support and then carries on, right? I don't know exactly how this is going to happen, and I don't know if it's going to happen at all. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just putting forward the best technical analysis that I can for you guys on this YouTube channel, and according to that, this is what I'm seeing in terms of the opportunity in this market. It's going to be quite a wild one to ride, and you guys already know the deal, right? I'm always looking to make money whether the market is dropping or rising up. I did make a small profit inside of VIP just the other day, and I shared all of the details of it inside of 𝗬𝗡lies VIP, which you can join by clicking on the first link in the description down below, and then the @𝗬𝗡lies button at the bottom of any post inside of 𝗬𝗡lies Gold, and then the send message button to ask me how to join 𝗬𝗡lies VIP. These 3 steps will take you, I mean, less than 30 seconds. They're very, very quick, and you will be able to get all the information for our paid products by following these steps. They have been life-changing for so many people inside of the crypto space, so definitely jump into them while you can. Bitcoin is very low right now, and we price our products in Bitcoin, so you are getting a fat discount on our products if you're counting it in the fiat currency price. So definitely jump in on this while you can, while it is cheap. And I mean, this is like nearly a half price discount. It's absolutely ridiculous. So if you do want to get in, then of course those are the steps that were just flashed on screen right there. The other thing that I want to show you is actually the Glassnode chart. So this is an interesting chart. This is, you know, those of you who watch this channel for a while may remember that I actually bought a subscription to Glassnode Studio, and it was something fucking stupid. It must have been like $7,000 to $10,000 just so I can see these charts, because these are very, very expensive charts. You can't access them without paying full price. But I think that it's very, very useful. And what this is showing is that over time, you know, when we're seeing the green, I believe this is a histogram, I don't know what these are called, but when we see the green things, this indicates that coins are generally maturing. You know, coins are staying in one place, they're not being moved around, they're not being spent. And then when we see it red, that's showing us that actually coins are being moved around, and by extension we can kind of conclude that they're being sold, right? And so we can see that with the initial rally up to $20,000 that we had in 2017, you know, previously there was a lot of holding action happening throughout, you know, kind of 2014 all the way to 2017. Quite a lot of holding, you know, happening with that green, I'm pretty sure it's a histogram, with that green histogram. As soon as the market really starts exploding again, though, we see huge changes in the net position change, basically indicating that a lot of people were moving around their Bitcoins, and yeah, I mean, you can conclude that they were selling as well. So generally, when we're seeing a lot of green, this indicates that, you know, the long-term holders expect the market to be rising. When we see a lot of red, that indicates that those long-term holders expect the market to begin dropping. And the accuracy of this is pretty impressive. I just want to bring us forward to, yeah, what's happened more recently in this market cycle around over here, and just take a look at how, you know, this changes as Bitcoin is rising up, right? So what we're looking at over here, just what is this? Yeah, just around over here. I know this is annoying because this info box keeps on moving around, but this area that I'm trying to highlight at the moment, can I hide this? Yeah, this area right here is when Bitcoin originally broke out above $20,000. And we can see that in all of this time, if I just only show you the red on this chart, in all of this time, there's no way to manipulate the chart. How am I paying so much money and the UI is so bad? Anyway, can I use a linear maybe? Nah, let's just stick to log. Anyway, what we can see here is that as the price really absolutely rocket ships higher, we're seeing a lot of these Bitcoins being moved around. We're seeing a lot of these holders exit their holding positions, and then that gradually actually dissipates until it turns back into more, net holding activity, and that is directly what precedes a move up. So just take note of this, right? While the market is pretty much gearing, and it's a little bit misleading, right? Here's the thing: is if you started paying attention to this indicator around November of 2020, you would have lost a lot of money if it made you exit a position, because you'd say, oh shit, there was a lot of holding activity that's closing off, so I might sell my Bitcoin, and you would have sold your Bitcoin at like $18,000, and we're now trading at more than double that, right? So it would have been an absolutely terrible idea, and this is why you don't rely on any single indicator ever. You need to build a very well-informed fully, full perspective conclusion on the market, but you can generally see that as the market is approaching its top and entering some quite dangerous territories, we're seeing that holding activity flip, and people becoming a little bit more aggressive with their Bitcoin. By the way, if you don't know how we get this data, this is purely because every single thing that happens on the Bitcoin network, if someone sends, receives, whatever, anything with Bitcoin, obviously that's all tracked on the Bitcoin ledger, right? Like on the blockchain. That's all tracked on the blockchain, and that's how we're able to extrapolate that data. That is what Glassnode does, and that's why they charge so much for their service. You can get a lot of really, really interesting data points right here. I mean, there's so many. It's the tier 3 stuff, which is the expensive stuff, and there's quite a lot. There's some really interesting things that they track. I don't have an affiliation with them or anything, but I do really, really like their product, right? I mean, take a look at this. We're looking at a bunch of very, very interesting, like a lot of these things I don't even know what they mean. I'd have to read the definitions below to even understand them, but so yeah, it's definitely something worth taking a look at if you've got those deeper pockets and you want some extra data to play with. But of course I have it, so if you have any suggestions for me, that's the doorbell going off. One more, hang on. Oh no, there's 3. If you have any suggestions, then you can always ask me, and I will cover that stuff for you. But then, yep, as I wanted to get to, we can see that net holding position, kind of moving to the upside here, essentially indicating that a lot of people really started holding their Bitcoins here. And I think this is actually pretty good proof that the market was only dropping because it was illiquid, because you're not seeing these holders stop holding Bitcoin. And so this indicates we didn't actually have a lot of selling pressure on this downside rally. It was only simply a case of no buyers being in the market. It's very different to what's happening right here, where you need to actively have a lot of Bitcoins moving around to sell and drop the market. That's not happening here. In this case, in this market drop, this was only emotional selling and nobody stepping back in to buy. Anyway, just a side note, the more important note here is that we can see quite a clear trend right now, that, there are many, many more holders at the moment, and it is building and building, definitely indicating that we could be looking at a nice explosion to the upside. So I still firmly believe that this is the case in the long term. You've seen why I'm looking at that kind of 70k target, and I want to make this really, really clear that this analysis is independent from my shorter term analysis. The fact is, ladies and gents, Bitcoin still has resistance if it approaches that 46k range, right? So this can still be very, very dangerous for Bitcoin in the short term. It doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't find more rejections, and it doesn't mean Bitcoin can't even drop down into the 30k range. I certainly don't think that's going to happen, but I would be an absolute idiot, and worse than that, I would be very irresponsible as a trader and analyst and YouTuber if I said that those things can't happen. My job here is simply to understand the long-term picture, understand the mid-term picture, and understand the short-term picture, and then give you guys the analysis on it that I'm producing, and then let you make your own conclusions. That's what this channel is all about. That's what this channel has always been about. And if you haven't already, then you need to make sure you don't miss out on this content, because this is the kind of objective analysis that actually fills pockets, right? I could sit here with my bottle of lotion and rub myself off to massive price predictions and just tell you that everything's going to the moon if I really wanted to. I sure as shit would be a lot richer as a YouTuber, and I'd have a lot more views if I did stuff like that. But that's not what this channel is about. This channel is about actually delivering very high quality content that you just can't find anywhere else. I hope my webcam works here. So there you go. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, you know exactly what to do. Hit up the likes, subscribe, tick the bell. Look at that sunset behind me. My God. Look at that. So, and these towers are bloody massive. These are very, very tall towers. But of course, we are extremely high up in the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. So we've got a stunning backdrop for these videos. Again, make sure to do all those clicks. If you want to sign up to Bybit, you already know the deal. You're going to get up to $4,100 completely free of charge just by making your first Bitcoin deposit when you sign up using my link in the description down below. Of course, if you want to get inside of VIP, bam, these are the steps on screen right now. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.